Community land trust grew out of the civil rights movement in the U.S. The first community land trust was established 50 years ago, led by Slater King, cousin of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Douglas Community Land Trust builds on this legacy, the spirit of Frederick Douglass, and the work of more than 250 community land trusts in different regions throughout the country. Racial and economic justice center our mission. Douglas Community Land Trust is a membership organization. We invite you to join.
To have everybody here today, and um, would like to welcome everybody to this session on home upkeep with an emphasis on air circulation and plumbing. So we are this is the we are from the Douglas Community Land Trust. We are a racial and economic equity organization that prioritizes education and training both before and emphasizes after post-purchase continuing education to maintain and operate your home. And without any more ado, I think we can kick things off. I don't think we have we do have a board member here who's going to be presenting. But I'll hand it over to Andy to kick things off.
All right, thank you, Adam, and welcome everybody to the workshop. We have two fantastic presenters today, and I'm not going to take a lot of time before we get to them because they really have the information you want to hear. Both Troy Baker and Daniel Blaze will be sharing more with you, and we'll do a little introducing in a moment or two. I just want to say quickly about myself. I am now retired back in Washington, D.C. after 5 years in Philadelphia. Worked 45 years in the housing field in D.C., Baltimore, and Boston. I volunteered a little bit up in Philly over the last 5 years. And one thing I learned that I found was really true, it was written by, believe it or not, a French architect 99 years ago. Next year will be the 100th anniversary of this writing by a French architect named Le Corbusier. And don't ask me to tell you or pronounce it right because my French is no good. But he said, a house is a machine for living in. And I think that's kind of the spirit of this workshop. We're going to talk to you, and we're going to talk with you about your house and how it is a machine that we live in, and that it, like a machine, like your car, like your lawnmower, like any gadget, I suppose your phone. It has bits and pieces in it that you need to pay attention to. It's in your interest to maintain them, to their upkeep is important. And that's what we're going to share with you. I was going to share very quickly one other thing about my own house machine experience, if you will. You might wonder what a toothbrush, my neighbor's deck, and a shade tree have in common. And I will tell you what they've had in common, although it has been over a span of, like I said, 45 years, is they each at a different time clogged up a drain of mine. It sounds silly, I know, but I had a toothbrush that disappeared and I didn't know where it was. And sure enough, about 2 or 3 days later, my toilet started getting clogged up. And I didn't know why, but the paper wasn't going down and so forth. Got in touch with the plumber. Well, that's where the toothbrush was. Somehow it had fallen into the toilet. So that's the toothbrush part. My neighbor's deck was power washed. Little bits of wood come off when it's power washed. It washed down into the yard drain, which was directly behind the house, clogged it up. Took us a while to figure that one out too. And then the shade tree story is actually simple and probably more direct. A root from the shade tree grew into the sanitary drain line that comes out of the back of the house and clogged that up. We had to have somebody come out and drill that out and so forth. So we all bump into these things in our homes, and the upkeep of our homes is key. And we want to make sure that to the extent we can, we sort of help you figure that out tonight and do as good a job on it as we can. As I had mentioned very early, and you might have heard it.
Andy, we got a request. Could you speak a little bit more directly into the mic?
Oh, I'm sorry. Wow. Yeah. Is this better? This thing may be falling out a little bit. Is that sounding better? I hope.
We'll see.
Okay.
We'll monitor things. Thanks for the heads up.
Okay, let me know if not. So we do have, as I mentioned, our two housing professionals that are about to get on the line. Do enter into the question and answer function, which is, I think you can locate at the bottom of your screen. There's a button for it. If you have a specific question that you want to see addressed, or if you have a specific story about Upkeep that you want to touch upon. Okay, so enough from me here. Let's get our professionals on the line. I want to tell you very briefly, Daniel Blaze is going to kick us off. He is a Douglas Community Land Trust director. He's on the board. And he's also been investing and managing properties since 2007 in the DC area. I also understand that he's following somewhat in the footsteps of his father initially, who did plumbing work. So Daniel's going to kick us off. After that, we're going to hear from Troy Baker. Troy also is a housing professional. He works specifically in what some people call HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. He has a company called the Comfort Heating and Cooling Company, and he's going to tell us about that. And interestingly enough, Troy shared with us earlier that he sort of started out with his dad too, I guess, at one point when he was 11 years old, helping him with some stuff. So we have a couple of professionals for you who are going to start off right away. They will introduce themselves a little better probably than I just did. They're going to share some of their own stories about their own home upkeep experience, and they're going to tell you very specifically about how from their position as housing professionals, they would advise you to take care of things. So without my carrying on any longer, let me ask Daniel, are you willing to kick this off and share with us about yourself and advice you would share with our participants today?
Sure. Can everybody hear me okay? Great. Okay. Thank you, Adam, and thank you, Andy. My name is Daniel. I am, like I said, I'm a board member for the Douglas Community Land Trust. I'm also a project executive for a DC-based general contractor. I'm also a homeowner, and I've been investing and managing properties since 2007, performing the maintenance, majority of the maintenance myself. I learned the plumbing trade from my father, who was a plumber, and I've had the pleasure of learning through my years at general contracting, working with some of the finest contractors around, as well as learning to repair, install, and maintain everything, including plumbing, in my own properties in my home. That's a little bit about me. Is there someone who can share those graphics, or should I be doing that?
I can bring them up shortly. Let me make sure I can do that. Which one are we starting off with, Daniel?
Let's start with the house. That's the one, the house one.
All right.
So let's talk plumbing. I'm going to start with the big picture, and then we're going to get into the individual fixtures. So water flows in, water flows out, right? It's that simple. In DC, you're going to get water pressures they're going to vary depending where you live. DC Water actually put out an offering to all DC residents. If your water pressure goes above a certain threshold, I think it's 80 psi, they will install what's called a pressure reducing valve, a PRV, because you want to keep it about 50 pounds psi to get a nice pressure for your shower, for your toilet, for all the different fixtures. And the way it works, you've got the water main in the street. That's at the bottom right there. It's called tagged city water. It's typically most houses are going to have one line that goes into the house. Goes in usually somewhere at a lower level, maybe in the basement, and that's cold water, and that will split off into different branches, and it'll run to each fixture. It'll go to your water heater, or your boiler, it'll go to your sinks in the bathroom, in the kitchen, it'll go to the toilet, it'll go to your washing machine if you have one, it'll go to your shower, it'll go to every fixture. The one that goes to the water heater is then heated by the water heater, and that provides hot water to the fixtures that get hot water. Not everything does, right? You don't get hot water in your toilet. You don't get hot water into your boiler. You don't get hot water in everything. But the fixtures that do, your sinks, your shower, your laundry, those will receive hot water. So water comes in, pressurized from the city, and goes and just distributed directly out to your different fixtures. The water doesn't change. The same water that goes to the shower is the same water that goes to a toilet tank. Surprise. And then when water comes out, that's what's the water in this diagram is shown in blue. So all the blue, it comes into the house at one point and then gets distributed to all the different fixtures. And then you see the red, the blue goes into the red, comes out. The blue goes into the water heater, which is that vertical rectangle on the bottom level there. And then the hot water goes out and gets distributed to the different fixtures that receive hot water. And then the green represents your sewer. And that's how everything eventually gets tied to one line that goes out to the city's sanitary sewer piping out on the street. And then certain fixtures also have what's called a vent that'll prevent any buildup of gases in your lines. And we'll talk about that a little bit as well. That's represented by the yellow. That'll just discharge any fumes out into the air above, so that they're not building up those methane gases and whatnot in the pipe or into your home. I should stay on track with my notes here. One thing that I want to make sure that everyone is clear on, one of the biggest things that we'll see whenever there's a plumbing issue is a leak, right? And no one and folks oftentimes don't know what to do when there's a leak. One of the biggest things that you can do to stop a leak, whether or not you permanently stopped it, but just to prevent it from doing more damage, is to turn the valve off. Now the valve is going to be, when the water comes in, it's going to be a main shutoff valve, like this here. Water comes into your basement. Thank you, Adam. Quick. The valve comes into your basement, and there's going to be one of two valves. It can be the round one, like the valve on a hose called a gate valve, or there can be with this one here called a ball valve, where you take the valve and you turn it so that it's perpendicular to the run of pipe that it's in. The way it's shown here, that valve is wide open, water is flowing, and all is well. If there's an issue where the water comes in, it may be in your basement, it may be behind a small panel in a wall somewhere, maybe in a closet, wherever that pipe is, I strongly recommend know where that shutoff valve is for your unit. If you're in an apartment, which you may or may not have, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Or if you're in a single family, most likely in a lower level, first floor or basement, depending on what you've got. But knowing where it is can prevent a problem from becoming even greater in the future. If it's the round one that you turn like it's a hose spigot, righty tighty, lefty loosey. That's the name of the game. Turn it to the right to turn it off. Turn it to the left to turn it on, to open it and let the water flow. And you should be able to turn it with just your hand. Using a wrench, even if it's tight, can be dangerous, because if you break that valve, then you've got no way to control that water flow anymore. That valve is now compromised, and you could have a bigger issue on your hands. So you should be able to turn that valve with your hand. Might even recommend, just when you find it, every few months, just go down there, turn it off, turn it back on, to make sure that it hasn't seized up on you and you're not going to have an issue when you really do need to turn it off. If you find that when you turn it off, you're still getting water coming out of out of your pipe, if there's a leak, or if you turn the water on a fixture, there's still water running, it means that the valve is not holding. The valve is not closing, and we recommend that valve be replaced, so that when you really do need it to close, it does. Like anything, nothing lasts forever, right? So it's possible that a valve can over time deteriorate, isn't sealed quite as tightly, and water does not stop the way it's intended. All right, let's talk about some fixtures. So a couple notes. There's always 1 meter per property, 1 water meter per property. That's whether it's multifamily, single family, commercial, residential, whatever the case might be. There is an aside where if you've got some irrigation, there's going to be a meter for that as well. But generally speaking, there's 1 meter per property. Um, and there's always one, what's the little one I was referring to? Excuse me. I was saying, thought there's your fixtures. You should have a water heater, and depending on the type of heating system you have, the boiler is inside your unit. DC code requires that each unit have its own water heater and each unit have its own heating system, and that be accessible from inside the unit. There are a few exceptions, a few older properties that are grandfathered in because that's where they were built back in, 18, 19 something. But any new construction, and generally speaking, DC will require that any renovations include a change so that every property has its own way to heat its own water and to cool its own space and heat its own space. I'm not going to get into the boiler too much. That's going to be talked about in a few. But we'll start with the bathroom as far as the fixtures. Let's go to the toilet. Again, the toilet gets cold water only. The toilet uses the most water. The function's simple enough, right? You use the toilet and you flush. There's more flushing that goes on than any showers you take, and every flush, depending on your toilet, can use a gallon, 1.8 gallons. Some older models can even use up to 2 gallons. And if you're doing that every time you urinate, every time you go number 2, you can wind up using a whole lot of water. Also, if there's a leaking toilet valve, and we'll talk about the valve in a second, that sound you hear when the toilet keeps on running, that will cost you a whole lot more than a long shower. And so you always want to make sure that when you flush the toilet, that the valve actually, that flapper actually closes. That's a great diagram. So you can see here that flapper seal. When you hear that constant running toilet, it means that that flapper didn't flap down completely. And as a result, water is pumping into that tank, trying to fill the tank, but it keeps falling down into the bowl. And so one of the biggest things that can go wrong with the toilet is that flapper needs to be replaced, or that overall just the flush valve itself needs to be replaced. Not a huge deal. It can typically be done with just your hand. You don't need any tools for it, but it is recommended that if you don't know what you're doing, get a plumber so that you're not finding yourself with a non-functioning toilet fixture. So inside the bowl, you've got, so the toilet bowl is the only fixture in your house that has a built-in what's called a P-trap. You can see on the right-hand side there. Well, we'll go into the P-trap in a little bit. The tool that you want to have on hand when for maintenance purposes when it comes to a toilet includes a plunger and what do you call it? Some channel locks. The one on the left is not the plunger that you want for your toilet. That will not seal enough around the bottom of that toilet bowl to get the pressure you need to clear any blockage inside the toilet. It's what we all associate with plunging a toilet, but that's the wrong one. That's actually designed for a more flat surface. You can see it sitting on the ground there, like your kitchen sink. And depending on the design, your bathroom sink or your shower. This will not get the job done for your toilet. The ones on the right-hand side are specifically designed to get into that into the P-trap that's at the bottom of the toilet and be able to push that air pressure down so that whatever blockage may be occurring can be cleared out with that plunger. Not everything goes down the toilet. In the US of A, the toilet can take toilet paper. It can take waste. Um, it does not take things like sanitary napkins. Sanitary napkins are designed to expand, and when they do, you've got a blockage. Had a tenant once upon a time who every periodically would call and say that the toilet was backed up. Could not figure out for the life of me why this kept happening to this tenant, until finally it dawned on a roommate of hers that, wait a minute, have you been putting your sanitary napkins down the toilet? And once you stop doing that, problem solved. Excessive amounts of toilet paper, even if you're putting down those flushable wipes, they say they're flushable and lower it down, but they don't break down the way toilet paper does. And as a result, they can get caught and they can stick around longer than you want them to. So things to have around: some channel locks, the plunger that's designed for a toilet, and the biggest issue is that folks tend to have that can really hit your wallet is that flapper not closing when you activate the valve by pushing down that little lever on the side of the toilet.
Daniel, may I interject with the story?
Please.
So as an example, we've had folks be told that they had a toilet running and they had to just replace the toilet completely. Called the number on the toilet, got a $2 part from the manufacturer, stop the flow.
Yep.
$2, not 800.
Right. The toilet bowl and the tank itself, they will last you. They will outlast you. The mechanisms inside, those can wear out. And what you probably bought for $2 is probably a seal that flapper sits on. Those are, like you said, $2, a couple of bucks at Home Depot. You replace that seal, just a ring that goes at the bottom of the tank, and you're good to go. Can you jump back to that? Look at the valve.
While we're doing that, Daniel, can I ask you a quick question? We got one in the Q&A box.
And
Sure.
Andy,
Yeah.
it's a bit hard to hear. I don't know if the mic, it might be defaulting to your computer.
I see. Okay.
So I am not sure.
Yeah, but that's not helpful. Okay, let me just try one other thing here.
I do see the question.
Do you see it?
Yep, I see it. It's the question there is believed that toilet paper can cause clogged pipes when flushed down the toilet. Is it true? It can. Toilet paper certainly can. What you want to do is make sure you're not overdoing it. You're not putting down too much toilet paper. It is a good practice to you can. There's no law that says you've got to wait until the very end of your activity to flush the toilet. Give it a bonus flush. Give it an intermediate flush so that you're not risking a blockage that'll cost you a lot more than an extra flush.
Daniel, is this the slide you're looking for?
We like the toilet actually. The next one's good. Yeah. So this is beside the toilet. This is the line, the hose line that goes from the pipe in the wall to the toilet tank. And zoomed in there, you can see there's a valve. There's a couple different types of valves, but this is the valve that goes to the tank, provides water to the tank, and lets the toilet operate. Take a look at the toilet. If you can, if you're on a phone right now, go into your bathroom, take a look at where that line comes in. That's the valve that you would turn clockwise to the right to close the valve to stop the water from flowing to the toilet. If you can't figure out why your toilet keeps running, turn the water off. That'll save you a whole lot. I had the misfortune of not catching a water issue soon enough, and I had a four-figure, over $1,000 water bill as a result. That's a sad day. And all that needed to happen was close that valve and replace that flapper. Problem solved. That flapper would have cost maybe $20. The seal that I'm referred to would have cost, $2, whichever the issue was, and it would have cost all of, maybe 30 seconds to close the valve while I troubleshot the issue. But that's an important thing to know, where the valves are on each fixture. We'll talk about that as we move on. Let's go on to the sink. Oh, sorry, the shower rather.
I don't know that we have a shower one.
I may not have sent it to you. Okay, well, so the tub, the shower has everyone's seen the shower, so I'll just speak to everyone's experience. A few things. So the shower consists of the tub, the faucet, the shower head, possibly a handle unit, and you've got a drain. The shut-off valves for your shower are going to typically be in a panel on the back side of the wall where your faucet is located. So that might be on the back side of that wall, might be in a room. It may be a closet in the bathroom. It may be in a bedroom, maybe a closet in the bedroom. But that panel gives you access to the valves that will turn the hot water and the cold water off to your shower. Things that can go wrong, depending on where you live. DC is pretty good about hard water, but hard water means you've got some calcium or other mineral buildup in your water that can start to build up inside of a fixture. What happens is that water comes out, it's got that stuff in it, and it starts to clog up where the spray comes out of your, for example, your shower head. Those little nozzles start to get gunked up with all that calcium. Ways to fix it: there's a product called CLR, calcium, lime, and rust. Cleans off all that stuff. You can use vinegar. You can use a toothbrush to brush that stuff off. I don't recommend you use bleach ever, but also in this application. But that's one thing that you can do if you start seeing that there's a couple of those nozzles that are not spraying or spraying sporadically. Cleaning off that shower head can be helpful. Things you always want to do to prevent later issues. A strainer in your sink drain, in your shower drain, is always helpful to keep hair or other things from falling in the drain. Typically, it's going to be the smallest strainer, the one in the bottom right there. Great image, Adam. Thank you. Is going to be the one that's used for your shower, and that'll keep hair out. Hair is the most frequent offender when it comes to blocked up shower drains. They're maybe $3 a pack of 4, maybe $3 or $4 at a dollar store or at a corner store. It'll save you a whole lot of time and effort with a backed up shower drain. When you do have that kind of issue, a plunger is probably not going to be your best bet. The way that the piping works for the shower drain, it won't allow that pressure to push whatever's down there. It also becomes an issue because while the toilet has a 2-inch or 3-inch line coming out of it at that drain, a shower typically has 1.5 inch P-trap below it. So that's much smaller, and it's more susceptible to being blocked up. A snake is usually the best answer. Above the drain, on the wall of the shower, just below the faucet, there's this circle thing. It's called a clean out. It's a cover for a pipe that goes down the back of the shower, connects to the drain, and goes out. If you're going to snake your drain, your shower drain, that's where you're going to put your snake, not directly into the drain. That's what it's designed for. That's its purpose, and that's how you would clear any blockages using a snake in your shower. Tools to have on hand: the snake is always helpful. A screwdriver, flat and Phillips head, is always helpful. And like I mentioned, the vinegar, CLR, or even an old toothbrush to clean off any of that calcium, lime, or rust buildup that might occur on the shower head or even on the faucet of your shower. If you're going to cut hair, put it in the trash. that's safer than putting it down the drain. Or compost, helpful as well. If you're shaving, smaller hairs, so not typically an issue, but if you can, put in a paper towel, toss that in the waste as well, or dispose of it in your compost if you're doing that. But try to avoid putting hair down the drain. It can get caught, and as it gets caught, it catches more, and the more it catches, the more blockage you have. All right, talk about a sink. Let's talk about a bathroom sink. So again, cold water coming in.
And Andy and
Yep.
Daniel, let me know when we got a couple questions.
Sure.
If you guys want to address them, y'all take the lead with that.
Let me give this a test. Can you guys hear me okay now? I unplugged that mic.
Andy, I think it's about the same.
Okay, all right. Well, I still might use it. There is one specific question, Daniel, about a toilet bowl that does not have a flapper, but it keeps running. And the person that wrote that says it is a push button. So then what do I do? And I think that's probably a push button flush, I would guess.
So the push button is on top of the drain,
Not sure.
on top of the tank rather.
Let's
I
assume
believe
that.
that's so the ones that you push from the top. It's at the top of the tank. You've got to, instead of having that valve that you push on the side, you push the top of the tank. They operate very similarly, and it'll still be the valve on the inside. It operates very similarly, and if it keeps running, odds are pretty good that you've got a valve that's not operating correctly, be it the seal or the flapper or the valve itself. There are a few different things, because those are a little bit different, that could go wrong. Someone like a Troy could take a look at that to find out exactly where the issue is. But more often than not, it's built very similar to the one that you push. Just a different orientation of where that flush is initiated. But odds are pretty good that it's a valve issue, and some component, be it a flapper, steel, chain, or some component there is not functioning correctly. If it's still running, again, turn that valve off while you're not using it, so that you don't have the issue hitting your pocket. I see a question here about kitty litter. Kitty litter has some weight to it. Kitty litter doesn't float that well, which makes it difficult to go down the drain effectively. The waste, animal waste, that's typically fine, but I wouldn't flush kitty litter down the drain, because it's not water soluble. Typically, I know it says flushable. I had the issue before, and it doesn't break down always as well as they claim.
Good.
I'm sure it does eventually, but in the meantime, you may have yourself a problem for a little bit. Did I get everything?
That's good. Go for it.
All right. So the bathroom sink. So similar to the shower, similar to the toilet, you've got hot water and cold water going to your bathroom sink and your kitchen sink. And you can see under the sink there, above what's called a P-trap, you've got those two silver knobs. Again, those are your shutoff valves. Similar to the toilet, if there's an issue with your sink, you can always turn the water supply off at the fixture. Every fixture in your house has a shutoff valve. Every fixture. If it has a cold water supply, that's got a shutoff. If it's got a hot water supply, that'll have a shutoff as well. If you have a vanity where you've got a cabinet under your sink, then inside against the back wall of that vanity, you'll find your shutoff valve. The P-trap, that's this squirrely looking thing under the sink there in the white. When I talk about those fumes going up to the not coming into the house, the reason for this P-trap is because there will always be water inside your P-trap, always, and that's by design, because as long as water's there, those fumes, those sewer gases, cannot come into the home past that water. That is by design the reason why there's those that P-trap is designed to be installed in any drain is going to have a P-trap. like I mentioned, the toilet is the only one that has it actually built in to the fixture itself. Everything else has got a P-trap that's piped in after the fact. One thing to note on the sink, you can see at the faucet, there's a knob right where the water comes out. We talked about hard water clogging up your shower head. The same can happen with your kitchen sink or with your bathroom sink. One way to get around to address that, it's called an aerator, and all it does is makes your water come out a little more smoothly, as opposed to it comes out a little more smoothly. And so when it gets filled up, it's like a strainer kind of looking thing. When you take it off, it can be removed on some fixtures, not all, but on some fixtures it can be removed. And the way you do that is you just rotate it counterclockwise. You just grab it with your thumb and forefinger and rotate. Sometimes it can be kind of tight to remove. You can consider using a pair of pliers or channel locks to remove that aerator. And you can clean that off similar to the shower head with a brush, an old toothbrush or some vinegar to get any gunk that might have built up. Screw it back on, and it should be operating like new. If you don't want to clean it, those are available for purchase from your Home Depot as well. They're fairly universal for kitchen and bathroom sinks. In the event that you decide you want to, if you find that you have an issue with your sink drain, before you do anything, before you decide, you don't need any tools. Those nuts on the end of each piece of the P-trap, they come off by hand pretty easily. That water's not under pressure, so there's no need to make it really, really tight. It's enough to keep it from leaking out with gravity's pressure. Before you disassemble it by yourself and try and clear out any blockage, which you can do. It's not a difficult thing. I say take a photograph of the P-trap before you take it apart. So you know with about 2 or 3 pieces that comprise that P-trap, and you want to make sure you put it back together again the same way you found it. Take a picture of it. Turn the water off. Turn off the water at the valve, not just at the faucet. Turn the water off at the valve. I've done it myself where you go to take apart your P-trap. That's a nice tool. You put a bucket underneath your P-trap to make sure any water is caught below, so that any water as you take it apart that's in there can have somewhere to go. You find that you've got some hair or some gunk or whatever in there that's been flowing down the draining process when you use that faucet, when you use that sink. And then, all right, I want to go rinse my hands off. And I turn the water on, rinse my hands off before I put the P-trap back on, and just dump all that water out. So what was a good thing turned out to be a mess. So you turn the water off, you avoid having any kinds of issues. Disassemble the P-trap. You just screw off those little nuts on the white part of that pipe there. Turn it, left, right. Make sure you got anything that's in there out. Put it back together again. And once it's back together again, hand tighten it. No need to use tools. If you use tools, you risk damaging that material. As long as it's tightened by hand, you should be good to go. Turn the water back on, run the water, and make sure that you don't have any leaks. You see a leak, jiggle around a little bit, tighten it up a little bit. They come back together pretty well. Tools you might need to have on hand. I mentioned the channel locks, take off that aerator from the faucet, a bucket if you ever want to take apart the P-trap, and a plunger, as I mentioned previously. Were there any questions on a bathroom thing?
Yes, there was one question about someone who has a P-trap that doesn't have a sink installed on top of it, and they want to know if it should be capped.
If you don't have anything coming to it, that's curious. You probably don't need a P-trap at all. A P-trap is there because it'll hold the water that'll keep any fumes from coming out. If you don't have any water, if there's nothing that pipe is being used for, take the P-trap off and cap the pipe at the wall. You don't even need a P-trap. But yes, just certainly cap it. If you don't have water in there, you're risking letting sewer gases come in that you don't want in your home. Methane gas smells like, I'm sorry. your question? I just lost all the questions. They just disappeared. Is that okay?
We
All right.
will have time, so everybody knows, we will have some time after we hear from Troy to answer additional questions and actually get input from both Daniel and Troy as needed. So please continue to share your questions with us, but know that there's some good time ahead that we can deal with some more.
Right. The kitchen sink. Thank you, Andy. The kitchen sink is very similar to the bathroom sink. You've got a hot water, cold water goes up to the faucet. The valves are very similar. You'll find them under the kitchen sink. For the hot water and cold water, similar to the bathroom sink. Some sinks will have a garbage disposal. If it's blocked up, if it stops working, a few things you can do. If you hear it running, trying to run, but it's not actually turning and breaking things up, what probably happened is that you've got something that's too difficult for it to take on stuck in there. I don't recommend putting your hand in there and trying to fish it out. Please don't put your hand in the garbage disposal. Nothing good happens from hands that go in the garbage disposal. If it's not functioning at all, if you don't even hear it trying to operate, kind of when you cut it on, you hear a sound like the motor's trying to run, but it can't. If you don't even hear that, at that point, you may have a burnt out motor. You may have to replace the entire unit. Either way, if you have a burnt out unit, I recommend calling in a professional. There's some wiring involved and some technicalities that most folks probably shouldn't take on themselves. YouTube is a great place to learn a lot, but understand that there are risks associated when you start fussing with those kinds of powered appliances or fixtures. If you do have something caught in there, fishing it out with something that can, a wooden spoon or something to see if you can dislodge something that's probably safe. But putting your hand down the garbage disposal, I'm sure we've all done it. I'm guilty. Not recommended. If you're ever deciding to do work on a garbage disposal, hitting the switch, turning it to off, that you use to operate it is not sufficient to make sure that you're not exposing yourself to a mechanical hazard. Cut the power off. Go to the panel, electrical panel, and don't even let power go to that unit. That's the safest thing to do. Cut the power off to it so that even if you hit that switch over and over again, you're not getting any response because it doesn't have any power going to it. There's no risk of accidental energization. Things that to put down the garbage disposal. It's designed to get water. Small bits of food, it's fine. Things you don't want to put. Grease is one. If you've got a deep fryer going and you got a big old vat of grease, put it somewhere else. Kitty litter to mix it up and throw it away. Restaurants will have a grease interceptor and a service that'll come and pick up the grease because the city will not allow grease to be thrown down the drain. Reason being is that grease, when it's at room temperature and warmer, is liquid. When it goes in the drain, there's no heat source down there, right? And so it'll start to cool. When it cools, it turns into a jelly-like substance. That jelly will block up everything behind it. You don't want that in your drain. You don't want your drain to be blocked up with a jelly-like substance. A, it's pretty gross, and B, it's a problem, and clearing it out can be challenging. So clean your. I mean, if you're washing dishes and you got some grease on it, that's fine. I'm talking about you got a big old deep frying a turkey or something, and you got a big old vat of grease. That's something you don't want to put just down the drain. You'll cause problems for not only yourself but also potentially the neighborhood, depending on how much you're putting down the drain there.
Daniel, let me just interrupt with a quick question we got about the garbage disposal. Somebody was asking about the small button that is located underneath it, what that purpose of that button is, when you would use it.
The small button underneath the garbage disposal.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's a reset of some kind. I don't know. I have the feeling I've seen that, but I don't know its purpose.
Um, I'd be surprised to see that to see a reset on the unit itself. I don't think I think of all the garbage disposals that I've taken out and put back in, have I seen a button? But if you got a phone, if you have one handy, can you take a picture of that button? I'd love to see it. See if we can troubleshoot that together.
I don't know that we have the technology to get that on the screen. The perhaps a little more description about that from the person that asked the question, Miss Sylvia. Maybe that would help out. We'll see if we get something on that. Again, we can return to that. We did have one other question, and then before too long, we'll get along to Troy and let him talk about air. But this is a question that was asking about, that relates to your P-trap information. The question was, flexible tubing is currently being used at the sink outlet. Do you have to form a P-trap for it to work?
Flexible tubing as a drain. For the drain, I guess you said outlet, that's a drain.
It says used at the sink outlet, so I assume it's being used as a drain, yes.
Yeah, so yes, you for your own wellness, you're gonna want to make a P-trap out of that tubing. Hard pipe is what should be used, an actual P-trap, but at a minimum, yes, you turn that flexible tubing into a P, so that you're preventing any fumes from entering your living space. You don't want those smells.
Excellent.
Not to mention the risk of once upon a time there was risk of combustion when you have too much buildup of those fumes.
Okay. There is one more question. Is there any more presentation you've got for us right at this moment, Daniel, or should we hit that last question and move on?
Got a couple of things I want to touch on. Spotting a leak, and the water heater is the last picture, and the spotting a leak.
All righty.
If you give me 4 minutes, I can hit both.
Go for it.
All right. So the water heater, like I said, takes in cold water, sends out hot water. It can be gas or electric. DC actually has a law that says that there will be no more gas, electric, or gas water heaters after 2025. That's a new law that was instituted this year. The gas provides fuel to heat the water. Same thing that the electric does. A gas water heater will have both a gas valve and a water valve. Water valve stops the water from going to or coming from the water heater. If you turn the water off that goes from the water heater, it's the same pressure in, pressure out. The pressure that's coming in is the same pressure that's pushing hot. The same cold water pressure that's pushing the air in, the water in, is the same pressure that's pushing the hot water out. So two things. If you smell gas, that means you're not getting combustion. It may be that your pilot light is out. If you have a gas water heater, if the pilot light is out and the gas valve is on, you're going to smell gas. Your gas valve is going to be on that. Typically, it's going to be either an iron pipe or this yellow line, and you can kind of see it on the right hand photo towards the back. Right behind that yellow line is going to be a red valve. That's your gas valve. That's where you want to turn it off if you smell gas. That's for your gas. Right at the top of that yellow pipe. Right, a little lower. Oh, a little higher. A little higher. Right, hang on. Right, the yellow, not the tan pipe, the yellow pipe, the yellow tube rather. Right there. Up, right there. That's where. Got some paint on it. It's some white paint on it, but that's where the valve is. Again, righty tighty, closes it, lefty loosey, opens it when the valve is in the same direction as the pipe, up and down, left and right, whatever it is, same direction as the pipe. That's when it's open, and when it's perpendicular to the pipe, that's when it's closed. You can adjust the temperature of the water that's in your water heater, and you can see at the bottom left photo there, that knob allows you to make the temperature really, really hot or even cool, and also has a vacation mode if you're going to be out of town. If you find that your water is scalding hot and burning you in the shower when it's at the hottest temperature, or that's a risk to children and safety and health and wellness, you can turn the temperature back down. That's a function on either electrical or gas water heaters. And if you're going to be out of town, like I mentioned, there's oftentimes a VAC, vacation mode, where it'll keep the water warm, but you're not going to use the same energy as you would if you were keeping it at the temperature that where you're regularly using it. Not sure, as far as maintenance, not much should be done. You typically want to have a professional handle maintenance, annual maintenance. They want to flush it out, get any buildup that may be coming as a result of hard water at the bottom of the tank. Let that flush out, and then you can get some good mileage out of your water heater. They're designed to last 7 to 8 years. You can get them up to 12 to 15 years with regular maintenance. A lot cheaper to maintain than it is to replace. Leaks you can find with you can see them visually. If there's a water spot on the wall, water spot on the ceiling, telltale signs that there's an issue with your with the leak. If there's a bubble in your paint or your wallpaper, also another sign that there's a leak. Stains on your there's your bubble, there's your peeling, and it could be signs of water, signs of a leak. So things to keep an eye out for. Issues to keep an eye out for: sounds of running water, dripping of faucets. All these items can cause, if they're not addressed quickly, if it's a leaking pipe, call a plumber they can replace the length of pipe to get rid of any leaks. If you got running water, turn that valve off. See if you can identify what the issue might be. We'll call on a plumber to change that valve. Avoid things like damage, mold, high water bills, and other issues that can hit hard if you're not managing your water. Water wants to stay in the pipe. Water doesn't want to. We don't want water to come out in an uncontrolled manner. The fixtures are where water wants to come out only, and water goes out down the drain. As long as water stays where we designed it to stay, we got no problem. When it goes deviates from that, that's when you start to run into challenges, and hopefully it was helpful. Any last questions before we move on to HVAC?
Sorry, I had to unmute. I think that does us gives us more than a super start on the plumbing side of things, Daniel. Thank you. What I'm going to suggest is two things. One is, if, as Troy is giving his presentation, if you've got a minute or two, if you could look at the Q&As that came in, some of those are maybe straightforward enough. You can type an answer right to the person that sent it, and that will resolve the issue. And then what we can also do, if any of those are left over after Troy gives his piece, we can return to those as well. Does that sound okay?
That sounds like I think I don't see one that's a question. I'll see if I can find a link about the law about gas water heaters, but the question about the periodically draining the water heater, the reason for that is so that anything that may have built up, if you have hard water, calcium or lime or whatever built up at the bottom of the tank, that can start to affect the performance of the water heater. If you drain it all out, that flushes out all those minerals, so that you're getting optimal use of your water heater and not using up a significant portion of it with that volume being taken up by those minerals. That's the reason for flushing it.
All right, excellent. Daniel, thank you for all that great information. We'll probably get back to you when we do some Q&A at the very end of the session. But I want to stop now and hand the microphone, as it were, over to Troy Baker from Comfort Heating and Cooling. Troy, if you are willing to give a little bit more of an introduction than I was able to do, tell us a little bit about yourself and your company and your experience, and then fill us in on air. What can you tell our participants about how they should be working with their heating, their ventilating, air conditioning? I know you've got some information on dryers too, that sort of thing. All right, so I'll hand it over to you, and please let us know.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Andy. How are you doing this evening?
Excellent.
Can everyone hear me?
Hola.
All right, my name is Troy Baker, and I'm the owner and operator of Comfort Heating and Cooling. I A little background about myself. I started when I was 11 years old with my father. We was rebuilding compressors back in Guyana, South America. So this is where I get my start. And after my mom moved to America, I come to America and everything else was history from there. And in 2010, I used to work because my father was still back home in Guyana. So after I moved to America, I came here in 1993. And in, let me see, 2000, I started working for a big construction company. And I know I didn't tell Adam this, but I rebuilt a compressor when I was working with a company called Pierce Associate. They do big construction, and my boss, he was very impressed with my work, and he decided to send me to school. So I went to school, and after I finished school, I came out of school in 2009 because it take a little while for me to get through everything because I didn't know too much that back then. So in 2010, I started my own company called Comfort Heating and Cooling. I changed the name a few times, so yeah, but it started in 2010. All right, so basically with airflow in your house, all your air conditioning unit is doing is circulating air throughout your whole house. Recycle the air over and over and over and over, recycling the same air that's inside of your house. You can bring fresh air from the outside in to help, and you can go from there. The more important thing with your airflow in your house is don't block the return vent, which is returning the air back to the air conditioning unit. Do not block it. A lot of people put couch, picture frame, cabinets, and all of these things in front of that. And I was trying to send Adam, a picture of an iced up evaporator coil. A iced up evaporator coil, if you look at it, is very, very bad. You don't get all of a sudden you're in your house, middle of the night or whatever. You're in the house, you know it's running, but you're not getting no air. And when I come out and I look, it's always something as simple as someone blocking it. So the easy way for you to know which vent to block and which vent not to, which you're not supposed to block any of them. The most important thing to you to know which vent is the return and which one is not is if you take a sheet of paper and you put it in front of each vent, the one that's blow the air away, if it's blowing, put the paper in front of the vent and it's blowing the paper away from you, that's the supply vent. If it's sucking the paper in to the vent, that's the return. And that's the most important vent, is the return, because you have to return that air back to the system. It have to do that. So do not block it. Dirty filters, you have to change your filter on a regular basis. Check them as often as possible because they can cause your evaporator coil to ice up too. And the ice does not stays inside of the house only. It goes from the inside all the way to the outside unit. So that's another thing. You have to check your filters very, very often to make sure they are staying clean. And it all depends on the type of filter that you're using too. If you're using the heavy filter that's filtering out all the particles, all the dust and everything, you need to change them very, very often, more often than you usually do. You need to change them. And lost my train of thought. Sorry about that. This is my first time. Okay, this is a picture of a very dirty filter. And the one on your right-hand side, as you're looking at the screen, is a clean filter. The one on your left-hand side is a very dirty one. Okay. So airflow is very, very important with your air conditioning unit. Very, very important. If you're suffering from allergies or any health issues that basically deal with air, there's a number of ways that you can go about it. Change your filter, get a thicker filter. If you see that that's not helping, you can get a UV light installed in the air conditioning unit. That's going to help to kill all the bacteria. It's going to help to keep your evaporator coil clean too. It's going to help to keep the mold out of your system also. Okay. Next thing is that you need to have your system maintenance every single year. You have to have them maintained. You have to get them checked every single year. Because if you don't get them checked, you can be in the middle of the summer, the hottest days, and your air conditioning unit just crank out just like that. Okay, I have a lot of customers that have very expensive, when I tell you expensive, 20,000 or more air conditioning unit system in their house, and they put them in and they forget that they're even there. And the only time they call is when they see that they're in the house and it's not getting cool or it's not getting hot, whatever. And then when you go and you find out, the compressor is burned out, all because of what? Dirty condensing coil. And when I tell you dirty, that they're so clogged up that the pressure gets so high that the compressor can't even do anything. It just fails. And the compressor is the heart of your system. It runs in thousands of dollars, and it all depends on the type of compressor you have that's inside of your system. So it's very important that you have a maintenance done to your system every year. With your air conditioning unit, you need to get it checked before the summer start. With your heating, you need to get it checked before the winter start. In that way, we can check the compressor lock rotor amps. It's going to tell us how your compressor is operating, because even your compressor have a limit. With your indoor unit, we can check the amperage. Your outdoor unit have capacitors, circuit board. Sometimes wire come loose by vibrations, and all these things affect every single thing. So to avoid a lot of the headache of worrying about, okay, this and hey, you need to get them checked every single year. A lot of the new systems that they're coming out with now, they have these new motors called ECM motor, variable speed motor. They produce a lot of air because they are moving away from split capacitor motors. And if one of them go bad, it's going to run you into thousands of dollars too, because that's how expensive they are. I have another customer of mine that I replaced his motor twice. Twice I replaced his motor, all because, and I told him several times, you need to change the filter. You need to change the filter. You need to change a filter. He never did listen. He didn't listen. So it failed on him again. So that's what I'm basically dealing with. Okay. So when a technician come to your house and he said, look, this is what you need to do to avoid these type of problems in the future, you need to make a note of it, so you will know that I need to get my system checked and I need to get it cleaned. It's just like, let me see, your air conditioning unit and your furnace is like if you're living in your house under a blanket. You lay down in the bed, you put the blanket over your head, it's hard for you to breathe. You take the blanket off, You breathe freely. It's easy. Same thing. Okay. Another way to look at it as doing the maintenance to your system is that it's just like your car. Your car will tell you it's time for you to have a service. Your air conditioning unit would not tell you it's time for you to have a service. You have to remember that on your own to have it serviced every single year, twice a year, once during the summertime and once during the wintertime. You need to have it checked because you have during the summertime. I'm going to start with the summertime. You have capacitors, you have circuit board, you have a refrigerant charge. And refrigerant is getting expensive, and it all depends on the type of refrigerant that your system is using too. If your system is using the older refrigerant, it's very expensive because they are not making it anymore. It runs in the hundreds of dollars just for 1 pound of the R22. That's the one that they are not making anymore. Now they are moving away from that refrigerant to a newer refrigerant. They're about to move to now too. So that's with basically with airflow and maintenance. I think that is it for me for right now.
Let me ask you something, Troy. I know when we spoke earlier, and I found this very useful, and I don't think you touched on this, that the filters that can be purchased for your furnace, and of course, if you have centralized air conditioning, they would also do that. They come in many different grades. Some of them are very sophisticated, I guess, because they get very tiny things that cause allergies and so forth. They're also more expensive. They seem like much better products. How would you advise people in terms of which filter to buy?
With filters, if you're suffering from allergies, you can get depleted filters. There's different brand. You can go to the Home Depot and they will give you the thickest filters. Okay, that's the filter that's gonna filter out every single thing. They are good for allergies. If you're not suffering from any allergies at all, or no health issue concerning air, you don't need a thick filter. You do not need it. Because the more air you can get across the evaporator coil or the heat exchanger during the wintertime or during the summertime is better for you. Because you got to remember, the same air that's cooling you down is cooling the motor down. It's keeping the motor at a certain temperature. So if you restrict the airflow, you can get an iced up evaporator coil. Your motor is going to get hot and just shut itself off. And then, yes, those are the two, okay? So that's what happens when you have a very thick filter, is that you're not letting through enough airflow. Then I have to come in and I have to dial the system especially during the winter time, I have to dial the heat back because the system is steady tripping on high limit because it can't remove the heat as fast as possible for the air to get through it. So I have to dial the gas back so it can operate on a normal thing. But if you're not, another way to combat if you're having allergies and those stuff is having a UV light installed in the system. They are going to help because there is just a light that's stuck in the ductwork and it kills all the bacteria as they come through. It's going to kill all the bacteria. They're going to help too. Another thing too, you can have your ductwork inspected. There's a few duct cleaning companies that you can look up online, and they are going to come in, inspect your duct, and if it needs cleaning, they can clean it for you. Okay, so yeah.
Very good, very good. Just a couple of questions quickly. I know we're getting close to the end of our time, but we have got a couple that came in from the participants. Here's ones for you. My air conditioner filter is getting wet from condensation. I've had 2 people look at it and they're saying nothing is wrong, just air not flowing properly. But it's a new unit, 2 years old. I know this isn't normal, but don't know what to do when I can't get any answers. Do you have any thoughts on how this person might address that?
If your filter keep getting wet, there's a leak in the, there is a leak, is leaking water. Either there is something is going on inside of the evaporator coil, because you got to remember, inside the evaporator coil, there's a drain pan that collects all the water, the condensation. And if the static pressure is greater, it's going to lift that water right off, right out to that drain pan, and it's going to fall and wet up your wet up the air filter. Another thing too, they can have them check, because the drain line might be clogged up also, and the water is not draining out as fast as you want it to drain out as fast as you want it to. So those are the number of ways that you can go and check and see.
Very good. Very good. Thank you.
But you need to get a professional technician to take a look at that. I don't want you to go and mess with that, because you can mess something up if you don't know what you're doing.
Okay. Here's another one for you, Troy. Hi, periodically I hear what sounds like water dripping inside the HVAC room. Any idea what could be the cause? I thought a vent cap was missing, but it happens regardless of weather, heating, or cooling season.
It all depends on what type of system the person has. Sorry about that. Okay. If you have a system, if it's happening during the winter time, you might have a condensing furnace, and it all depends where the water is dripping. Do the person know if they have a sub pump in there? If I have a sub pump in the mechanical room? Because this report, the person might hear the water is dripping, that it might be dripping in the sub pump. So they're constantly hearing the water dripping. But if it's not on the floor, is that the system is removing the water, and there have to be a sub pump in the same area that the water is going.
Let me interrupt you for just a second. He replied, it's a forced air system. There is no sump pump.
Is water on the floor?
Water dripping inside the HVAC. No, not on the floor. It sounds like it's just the dripping sound. So it's not clear where it's dripping.
I don't know.
Do you want to, we can see if you can explain more verbally, or maybe keep going?
I mean,
Yeah,
I don't.
Not sure how to get, you mean actually hook the person into a dialogue? Yeah. I'm not sure how to do that, Adam. I'm sorry.
I got it. Willie, you can unmute if you like. And Pauline, we see your hand too. Looks like you're off mute, Willie. Go ahead.
Okay. Hello, sir.
Hello, how you doing, Willie? Good evening to you.
What happens is I couldn't tell what it was, because what happens is it's you hear tickling like water hitting tin.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I thought. I said, well, maybe it's the vent cap that's missing for the flue pipe or something. But it's like it's hitting ductwork.
But it's like it's inside of the ductwork itself. Is
but
this
it's not the ductwork?
Okay, is it
inside
happening?
The room.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Inside the duct. It's not like it's inside the ductwork inside the furnace room.
Okay, is this happening when the system stop, or when the system is running?
Both.
When the system is running and stop?
Yes.
Huh. Nice.
I've been in property management for over 30 years, and it's just unusual for me.
Oh. Have you ever take a look at the ductwork and see if the ductwork is sweating during the summertime?
That's a good one.
Because
would there be a need for it to sweat in the winter?
No, they cannot sweat during the winter time. Only, have you ever take a look and see if there is a pipe above that's dripping water down?
Man, I thought it was the condensation from the unit above, but the AC is not running when it's 12 degrees outside and the furnace is on.
And you still hear water dripping?
Yes, sir. It's an unusual one.
No,
And I
that's
can't
not.
call anybody to come take a look at it because they won't hear it
Mhm.
when it happens. It doesn't happen when I call somebody else to take a look at it.
You may have a pipe. You might have a plumbing pipe that's right above the ductwork that's probably dripping water very slowly. Because if your system is not, if the system is running, you hear it. If the system is stopped, it is still doing it. If it's happening during the winter time, it's still happening. You have to
Yeah.
have some type of plumbing pipe that's on top of that duct, okay, that's leaking. Because earlier this summer, I have a customer of mine that she had a similar problem, but the water was coming from her sprinkler pipe. And the only way she knew water was dripping is that their ceiling keep getting wet in the basement. Because the whoever installed the sprinkler pipe, they put it right next to the ductwork, and when they probably go to dope it up, they didn't dope it up properly, so the water was coming off of coming out of the sprinkler pipe and dripping right on top of the ductwork on the side of it, but it was not hitting exactly on top of the ductwork. It was just hitting the side and run down and causing a puddle. So you may want to check in the mechanical room and look above the ductwork and see if there is a pipe that's above that duct that you might be hearing it from. Okay.
All right, I'll take a look. It's weird, but thanks a lot. I appreciate you trying to answer the question.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you.
And let me ask Troy just a second. I want to ask Adam. Adam, how are we doing on time? I know we're only 3 minutes away, I think, from the end of the webinar. Are we allowed to go over a little? Shall we do our goodbyes now? What's the story?
Well, we don't allow for overtime. So no, I want to thank our Troy and Daniel both for appearing. Why don't we close out the meeting, and if they're able to stick around, we can do Q&A for another 5 or so minutes. But let's maybe close that out. Does that make sense to everybody?
For me.
My apologies, Troy.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Great. Well, let's see. So yeah, so I want to thank everybody for attending. I want to thank Troy and Daniel first of all for sharing their expertise. You know, these guys get paid to do this, and we, as much as we love them and we want to shower them with appreciation, we are not showering them with dollars because we are a nonprofit. We are happy to pass along contact information in a follow-up email. I know Troy is available in the DC metro area.
Yeah.
And Daniel, I'm not certain at this time. So I also want to thank Andy Slutterback for sharing his wisdom and his expertise. And I want to recognize a number of our board members. So Daniel Blaze is a critical part of the Douglas Community Land Trust and has been sharing this sort of expertise with us as we educate ourselves, not only on the affordability and financial aspect, but the maintenance and the construction aspect of housing, because housing doesn't end when it gets built or when you move in. Lots of work to do in the meantime. And then we have a number of other panelists, and I think we have a couple that we have promoted. So Kiva Dennis, thank you for sharing your expertise on the board as speaking to the financing. And Kaisha Davis, thank you for your basically never taking a day off organizing. I mean, if either of you want to say maybe a word or two about Douglas CLT, that's fine too. We would love that. And I know Luam Kabade was on as well. Luam, I'm promoting you. So Kaisha, if you want to say a word or two, you're welcome. welcome to do so.
Okay. My apologies. My voice is my allergy. I'm participating today on the presentation. Super duper helpful in so many ways because plumbing is totally super duper expensive when needed, and HVAC is crucial to your health that people learn about the HVAC system. So thank you, Adam, Ginger, Donna, everyone that's on the call, Kiva, Daniel, everyone for participating today. Thank you so much.
Great. And we are a membership organization, and our board members were all democratically elected. So if you want to participate and share your expertise in your different areas, please consider becoming a member. We will put the link in the chat. And I, of course, cannot forget to thank my colleagues, Dr. Dinah Carter, and Ginger Rumpf and Victoria Perez for their work in promoting and setting this up. I appreciate working with you all. And I think we can dismiss the folks that don't have questions, but we're going to try and keep it to five-ish minutes more to answer questions, and we'll start taking people off mute, I think. Andy, what do you think? So you can verbally.
That's good. We've got just 2 of them written that look pretty straightforward. Why don't I read them out and see? This one may be a better one for Daniel, not sure. Somebody wrote, thanks. I use a tub shroom to prevent hair and such to go down my bathtub. I like that name. However, any suggestions to help clean my shower drains would be appreciated.
Sure. Couple different options. From a prevention standpoint, using that strainer to keep that hair from going in, and those strainers, they're cheap. They can be replaced if they get clogged up, or you can clean them off with an old toothbrush, clean out the whatever gunk that might get caught up in them. If you've already got an issue, a snake, and nothing to be as fancy, nothing to be electric or anything like that, something that you can put down that clean out in the front wall of your tub, get it down there a few feet. That should dislodge whatever is causing any backups, and then with the strainer in, you should be in a good place to prevent that from reoccurring.
Excellent, Daniel. I can't resist asking you your opinion about something I've used that I like. There's a white plastic, very flexible, sort of a ribbon-like thing that's about, 18 inches long, that's got little teeth on the side of it you can buy, and it's got a loop.
Yeah.
I forget what they're called. You can push them down your drain.
Yep.
They seem to do a pretty good job of
Yeah.
grabbing hair and gunk and bringing it out. What do you think?
Just a consumer-friendly kind of snake.
Okay.
So a snake does more than just push stuff. It can also grab whatever's in there, and when you pull it up, it'll have all that stuff on it. Pushing it down so it goes to a wider pipe that can take it without causing a backup, or pulling it out with that device. It's got those spines on it that'll pull out, catch whatever hairs might be down there. Either one. The idea is just move it from where it is to where it is no longer a problem, and then prevention moving forward.
Very fine. Very fine. Okay. So one more question I've got here from folks in writing. And this might be for either of you guys. So let's see how this lands. The question is, for the flexible tubing that takes water from the HVAC condensate pump to the laundry sink, should I loop that into a sort of a P-trap also?
No.
And why not, Troy? I'll put you on the spot.
Because if you loop it, it might kink. It's a flexible, clear condensation drain line. Is pumping the water outside, and you don't want to restrict it. If you don't need a P-trap in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Daniel, you okay with that?
Yeah. Again, a P-trap is to prevent fumes. That tube is not tied in such a way that fumes are going to come back up. Also, it's tied into a line that probably has a P-trap already on it. So there's no risk of fumes coming up into that tube, and you're risking, like Troy said, causing another issue if you start trying to turn it and bend it and do different things with it.
Very good, very good. Thank you both. And then the only other written one I see, it's a little open-ended, but let's try this on for size. Is insulation needed with an air conditioning unit? And without it, can it cause dampness? They say they live in an apartment.
They live in an apartment and installation.
They're asking about, is insulation needed with air conditioning unit?
Yeah, it all depends if the humidity is high. The only insulation that you needed, your air conditioning unit already comes, your furnace comes with already insulated inside. But your ductwork, some ductwork have insulated and some of them do not have insulated. But if the ductwork is sweating, it needs insulation. So it's kind of a yes and a no. It all depends on what's happening. If they're seeing condensation dripping from the ductwork, yes, they do need insulated. The ductwork do need insulated. But if no condensation is coming from the ductwork, you don't need it.
Okay. And then Adam, I know we're past our 5 minutes, but I see one more that came in the nick of time at 7:35. Let me just throw this one out if I could real quick and see what kind of an answer. I looked at my shower and I don't see any clean out at all. Do you know if this is required under DC housing code? Like something that wasn't constructed properly when this 1925 row house was renovated in 2016.
So the clean out is actually on you. It'd be part of the manufactured tub.
So it's a shower with it would be part of the showering unit would have a P-trap.
It would have that clean out. Let me see if I can. I'm Adam. I just sent you a photo. I don't know if how difficult it's going to be to get that up. I just texted you. Let me see if I can find a photo of a shower that's got that to be clear on what I'm talking about when I say a clean out on the.
While you're looking for that, Daniel, I would just point out, and this may be obvious, but if I could just add, a lot of showers have the floor of the shower at the level of the floor in your bathroom. So there may be a P-trap, but it may be under the floor where you can't see it. It may in essence be between a couple of the beams that are, or joists as they're called, that are holding up the flooring that is holding your shower. So it could also be if you can't actually see all of the drain exiting the bottom of the shower and where that drain is going, it could be that P-trap is simply out of sight.
This one, Daniel?
Okay, yeah, that's the one. That's the one. So below the faucet, there's that silver circle. That's your clean out. That's it right there.
Mm-hmm.
So every tub's gonna have one, and it's just either a flathead or a Phillips head screwdriver to remove the bolt that holds that clean out cover in place. Cover the drain when you take it out so that bolt doesn't fall down the drain. But that's it right there. That's what you're looking for to be able to send that snake down the drain. If you have like a standing shower that's fully made of tile or just has a bottom basin and not a full tub, you're not going to have that clean out. This is just for those pre-manufactured tubs, whether they're steel or fiberglass or whatever, they're going to have that clean out opening.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you, Adam.
Well, I want to call it, and I did a cardinal sin. I did not thank specifically our interpreters who are invisible but incredibly important. So thank you, Sandra and Abraham. Again, I apologize for not including you. But we are going to have to cut it short because these are, working folks, and we need to kind of move it on. What will happen though, as you close out, a survey will pop up for you, and you can put in any remaining questions you have. and we will do our best to answer it by email or perhaps in a future upkeep session. So I just want to thank everybody for attending, and we'll release you all and have a lovely afternoon and enjoy your dinner.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.